The sound that night didn't belong in a quiet suburb. When I stepped outside, barefoot on the cold porch, the first thing I saw was wheels. Bent, twisted, one of them still spinning in the streetlight like it didn't understand it was broken. My daughter's wheelchair, crushed under a black SUV, and standing there, phone in hand, robe still tied, was our neighbor, Marlene, the self-proclaimed queen of the HOA. She didn't look sorry. She looked annoyed. "I told you that things shouldn't be left on the ramp," she said, like she was talking about a trash bin, not my daughter's only way to move through the world. I felt something snap inside me, quiet, deep, like glass under pressure. She had no idea who I was, no idea what power I actually had in this neighborhood. And that was her first mistake. My name's Daniel Ross, 42, civil engineer, single dad, veteran. 2 years ago, life looked different, cleaner, lighter. Back then, my daughter Emily could run faster than I could. Her laughter used to echo down the hallways of our old house like wind chimes. Until one rainy Friday evening changed everything. A delivery truck skidded through a red light, and by the time I reached the hospital, Emily was already in surgery. The doctors said the words so gently I almost didn't hear them. Spinal cord injury. Permanent. The first few months after that were a blur. Hospital smell, beeping monitors, cold coffee cups piling on my bedside tray. Emily learned to live in her chair, and I learned to fake being strong. The hardest part wasn't the pain. It was watching her look out the window and whisper, "I just want to play again, Daddy." So when I finally found a small house in a quiet, gated neighborhood, clean sidewalks, trimmed lawns, a promise of normalcy, I thought it was a miracle. We'd start fresh. New school, new beginnings. The HOA brochure promised community care and accessibility. It was perfect. Or it looked that way. The first time I met Marlene, she was standing on our driveway with a clipboard. Tall, gray curls in a tight bun, lips pursed like she'd been sucking on lemons her whole life. Behind her, 2 other HOA board members, men who nodded whenever she did, like backup dancers in matching polos. "Mr. Ross, welcome to the neighborhood," she said. "We have some community guidelines you'll need to sign." I smiled, wiped the drywall dust off my hands. "Sure thing. Just finished the ramp for my daughter, so—" Her expression changed. The word ramp seemed to bother her. "Oh, right. You're the one with the special needs child," she said, the words dripping with forced sympathy. I nodded slowly. "My daughter's name is Emily." She looked past me at the ramp, a smooth wood-paneled slope I'd built myself. "Just make sure it's stained to match the house exterior. We have an aesthetic to maintain." It was the first warning shot. I didn't realize then how many would follow. Over the next few months, the letters started showing up. White envelopes with bold red stamps, HOA violation notice. The first one said improper storage, wheelchair ramp not approved by design committee. Then came excessive sidewalk obstruction. Then, unauthorized modification to front property. Every time I appealed. Every time Marlene denied it. I tried to stay civil. Emily loved her new school, and the neighbors, at least most of them, seemed kind. I didn't want to be that homeowner, the one who fights with the HOA. But one afternoon, when I came home from work, Emily was crying on the porch. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" She pointed to a note taped to her wheelchair ramp. Scrawled in sharp, angry handwriting, "This ramp is an eyesore. The neighborhood deserves better." Her small hands clenched around her wheels. "Daddy, did I do something bad?" she asked. Something inside me broke again. But I smiled, knelt beside her. "No, honey. You didn't do anything wrong. Some people just forget what kindness looks like." That night, I took photos of the ramp. Measured the incline, logged the dimensions, saved every email. Because the engineer in me knew you don't start a fight until you've built your foundation. 2 weeks later, I got an invitation, or what looked like one. HOA quarterly board meeting. Attendance encouraged. I hadn't told anyone yet, but my new position at work gave me a bit more time. And more importantly, I'd quietly applied to join the HOA board as a reserve advisor. It was a volunteer role, unpaid, invisible. Marlene didn't even know my name had been added to the internal list after one of the old board members stepped down. When I walked into that meeting, she was already talking, loud, confident, pointing at a slideshow. Her topic, neighborhood image and compliance. On the screen behind her was a photo of my house, zoomed in on the ramp, zoomed in on Emily's wheelchair sitting at the top. Her voice was calm but sharp. We must maintain standards. Sympathy doesn't excuse sloppy architecture. I sat quietly in the back. Every word felt like sandpaper against my throat. When she was done, she asked, "Any comments from board members?" That's when I spoke. "Yeah," I said softly. "Just one." Heads turned. Marlene blinked, confused. "I'm sorry, who are you?" I smiled. "Daniel Ross, newly appointed advisor, civil engineer, and Emily's dad." The room went still. She stuttered, Well, of course, Mr. Ross, welcome to the—" But I wasn't listening. I was looking at the photo of my daughter's chair on the screen, surrounded by judgment, and I decided, right there, that I wasn't going to be silent anymore. The next morning, the letters stopped. Marlene must have realized she couldn't push me through paperwork anymore, but she didn't give up. People like her never do. Instead, she started small, petty. She'd accidentally park too close to the ramp, blocking Emily's access. She'd leave notes about our untrimmed hedges, even though I'd measured them with a level. One morning, she even called animal control, said our service dog was a nuisance. Every time I documented, calmly, quietly, because I knew something she didn't. In the next board election, I wasn't just an advisor anymore. I was next in line for chair, and that meant soon I'd be her boss. But before that day came, before I could even think about justice, she crossed a line I never thought anyone would, the night she destroyed Emily's wheelchair. It was late. Emily was asleep inside. I'd rolled her chair onto the ramp to clean the wheels after rain. 15 minutes later, I heard the noise, the crunch, the screech, the hollow silence after. And when I ran outside, she was standing there, calm, proud, like she'd just taken out the trash. "Should have kept it inside," she said. "It was blocking the sidewalk." I wanted to scream, but Emily was watching from the window. So I didn't. I just looked at Marlene and said, "You just made a mistake you can't walk away from." She smirked. "We'll see about that." And that's when our quiet little war became something else entirely. The next morning, I didn't sleep. I just sat in the garage staring at the pieces. The frame was bent beyond repair. The titanium warped where her tires used to spin. Emily's pink handle grips were torn, one missing completely. There was a small patch of blood on the rim. My blood from when I'd picked it up too fast. You don't realize how heavy silence can be until you have to carry it for someone else. Emily didn't say much that day. She just watched me from her bed, small hands folded on her lap. "Can you fix it?" she asked softly. I tried to lie, but my voice cracked. "I'll get you a new one, honey." Better than before. But she shook her head. "I want mine." That hit harder than anything. By afternoon, I was at the HOA office. Technically, it was just a converted storage room beside the clubhouse, a place that smelled like printer toner and lemon cleaner. Marlene was there, of course, sitting behind the desk, sipping her coffee like it was any other day. When she saw me, her smile faltered. "Mr. Ross, what brings you?" You hit my daughter's wheelchair, I said flatly. Her tone shifted instantly. Excuse me? You can't accuse me of... I have security footage, I lied. Sometimes lies are the only way to make the truth move. She froze. Footage? I leaned forward. You left tire marks, Marlene. You parked in front of my ramp. You destroyed medical equipment. That's a felony, by the way. Her lips tightened. If you think threats... This isn't a threat, I said. It's documentation. You like that word, don't you? Documentation. I dropped a folder on her desk. Every violation letter she'd ever sent me. Every email, every petty accusation. And then, on top, I placed a photo of Emily in the hospital, smiling with her wheelchair. Her face flushed. You'll be hearing from me through official channels, I said, as a board member. And as a father. Then I walked out before she could say another word. The next few days, the neighborhood buzzed. People talk. They always do. Whispers at mailboxes, long looks from neighbors who'd always waved before. One mom, Sarah, from 3 houses down, came over with cookies. I heard what happened, she said softly. Marlene's been like that with everyone. But this is too far. That was the first time I realized I wasn't alone. The neighborhood wasn't full of villains, just people too tired, too scared, or too polite to fight back. By the next board meeting, I had a plan. Marlene started, as always, with her clipboard. Meeting called to order. First topic, code enforcement. Before she could go on, I raised my hand. Actually, I said, I'd like to address an unresolved incident involving property damage and harassment. Her head snapped up. That's not on the agenda. It is now, I said. As acting board advisor, I'm adding it. A murmur rippled through the room. The other members looked uncomfortable, unsure if they should intervene or just let it play out. I turned to face them all. For months, my family has been targeted. My daughter's accessibility ramp was called an eyesore, her wheelchair destroyed, and the person responsible has used this HOA as her personal weapon. Someone in the back whispered, "Is that true?" Marlene tried to regain control. "Daniel, that's enough. We don't air personal disputes in board." "Personal?" I said, cutting her off. "You made it personal the moment you drove onto my property and destroyed my daughter's independence." The room went dead silent. She stood up, pointing a trembling finger. "You have no proof." "Then you won't mind if we pull the clubhouse security logs," I said calmly. "They cover the entire street front." Including the night of the incident, her mouth opened, then closed. She sat down slowly, eyes darting to the others. That was the first time I saw her afraid. After the meeting, 2 board members, Mark and Denise, caught up with me in the parking lot. Mark looked uneasy. "We've all had issues with her, Dan. But you're not really going to press charges, are you?" I stared at the asphalt where her tire marks still faintly lingered. "She destroyed medical equipment," I said. "I don't have a choice." Denise nodded. "We'll back you. Just be careful. Marlene's got friends. Old friends." That night I checked my email. There it was, an anonymous message. "Drop this before you regret it." No sender, no signature. I stared at it for a long time, listening to the rain hit the windows. Emily was asleep again, hugging her old teddy bear. Her empty wheelchair space sat in the corner like a ghost. I knew then this wasn't going to end with an apology. It was going to end with exposure. The next day, I filed an official incident report with the police. They sent an officer, young guy, polite but cautious. "Sir, these HOA disputes can get messy," he said, glancing around the pristine lawns. "This isn't a dispute," I told him. "It's destruction of property and harassment of a disabled child." He took the statement, the photos, the tire impressions I'd preserved. "I'll file it," he said, "but I can't promise the DA will pursue it without solid footage. That word again. Footage. When he left, I sat down and opened my laptop. And for the next 6 hours, I combed through neighborhood security cameras, traffic cams, doorbell cams, even the clubhouse feed. Finally, at 2:17 a.m., I found it. A grainy clip, headlights, a black SUV turning into my driveway. Then a crunch, a lurch forward, a figure stepping out, looking down at something. Even through the blur, I recognized the posture. Marlene. It wasn't perfect footage, but it was enough. The next morning, I sent it. To the police, to the HOA board, and to every resident email list I could find. No caption, just the video. Within hours, the neighborhood exploded, texts poured in. Is this real? I can't believe she did that. She's been bullying people for years. By noon, the board called an emergency session. Marlene didn't show up, but her silence said everything. For 3 days, she avoided me. No car in the driveway, no lights on at night. The perfect suburban queen suddenly hiding in her own castle. But then, on the 4th day, she struck back. A notice arrived in my mailbox, HOA infraction, ramp removal required, signed and dated by acting HOA president. Her. I laughed out loud. I couldn't help it. Even cornered, she was still trying to control the battlefield. But she didn't realize the timing, because that same afternoon, I got a call from the city accessibility office. Mr. Ross, your report's been reviewed. We'd like to open a compliance investigation on your HOA's treatment of ADA standards. And just like that, the ground shifted under her feet. 3 days later, I called an emergency board meeting myself. It was my right now. The bylaws allowed it. Half the neighborhood showed up. When Marlene finally walked in, the whispers started. She tried to stand tall, but her confidence cracked. Her voice shook when she said, "This is harassment. You're turning people against me." I leaned forward, meeting her eyes. "No, Marlene, you did that yourself." I held up a copy of the ADA complaint, stamped and signed. The city will be here next week to inspect every property under your enforcement, including your own. Her jaw clenched. "You think you can ruin me?" she hissed. I didn't answer. I just looked down at the photo of Emily smiling in her new chair, one we'd borrowed temporarily, and said, "No, Marlene, you already did that to yourself." And with that, the battle lines were drawn. The following week felt like the longest 7 days of my life. The city's accessibility division confirmed their inspection date, Tuesday, 9 a.m. From the moment that email arrived, the air in our neighborhood changed. People who used to wave politely now avoided eye contact. Others, quietly fed up with Marlene's reign, began whispering their own stories. The mailbox at the clubhouse overflowed with anonymous letters, complaints that had never been filed, photos of unapproved sheds and fences that somehow hadn't received violation notices. Marlene's name came up in every conversation like a curse word. Still, I didn't relax. I knew how people like her operated. When cornered, they didn't surrender. They doubled down. The morning before the inspection, I was repairing the porch rail when my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Enjoy your little victory. Hope your daughter's new wheels are fireproof." For a second, I couldn't breathe. I scanned the street, nothing but trimmed hedges and silent driveways. I took screenshots, forwarded them to the detective handling my earlier report. He replied within minutes. "Stay alert. We'll patrol the area tonight." That night, I hardly slept. Every car door slam, every rustle outside made my chest tighten. At 2 a.m., the dog started growling toward the front window. I eased the curtain open. Across the street, a silhouette stood by Marlene's SUV, her phone glowing in her hand, staring right at our house. She held the look for a few seconds, then turned away. Maybe it was paranoia. Or maybe she wanted me to see her. One last show of control before everything fell apart. When the inspectors arrived the next morning, the neighborhood turned into a stage. Clipboards, cameras, official badges catching the sunlight. I greeted them on the sidewalk, heart pounding but steady. They inspected the ramp first, measuring slope, guardrails, hand grips. Perfect compliance, one of them said, scribbling notes. I glanced toward Marlene's house. Her curtains twitched, then closed. Next, the inspectors went property to property, checking ADA access, sidewalk widths, mailbox heights. Within 30 minutes, they started frowning. One officer turned to me quietly. "Did you know the HOA's community center doesn't even have an accessible restroom?" I shook my head. Figures. By noon, it was over. They packed their folders, thanked me for cooperation, and left. But before driving off, one of them said, "We'll be in touch soon." And, "Mr. Ross, thank you for standing up." Those words shouldn't have meant much, but they did. That afternoon, I found an envelope taped to my door. No name, just a folded sheet of paper. "You've made enemies, Daniel. Watch your back." I sighed, tossed it on the counter, and went to check on Emily. She was in the living room, drawing with colored pencils. "What are you making?" I asked. She grinned. "A new ramp." With flowers on the side, I smiled. "Looks better than the real one already." Her face softened. "Daddy, are you mad at that lady?" I hesitated. "I'm disappointed. She hurt you, but being angry won't fix things." She tilted her head. "Then what will?" "Making it right," I said, "and making sure no one else has to go through it. Sometimes kids say things that make adults look small." That day, Emily reminded me why I was fighting in the first place. 2 days later, the city's report went public, all tied to HOA negligence, most signed off by Marlene herself. The community chat exploded. Residents demanded her resignation, some even called for criminal charges. That evening, I received an email from the board secretary. Emergency meeting. Mandatory attendance. Tonight I knew what it meant. Judgment Day. For her, maybe for all of us. The clubhouse was packed. Neighbors lined the walls, phones recording. When Marlene entered, she looked smaller. The bun was gone, hair loose, hands shaking. She tried to speak first. "Before we start, I want to address the lies," Denise interrupted, holding up the report. "These aren't lies, Marlene." "These are city records," the crowd murmured. I stepped forward. "You used this HOA to harass people. You ignored accessibility codes. You endangered my daughter." Her eyes flashed. "I enforced rules, Daniel. That's what keeps property values up. People like you, sympathy cases, you ruin the image." The room gasped. I didn't raise my voice. "My daughter isn't an image. She's a child, and she deserves to live here just like anyone else." For the first time, Marlene seemed unsure. She looked around, but no one defended her. Not one person. Mark cleared his throat. "Motion to remove Marlene as acting president." Hands went up. All but hers. And just like that, the self-proclaimed queen lost her crown. You'd think that would be the end. But monsters rarely disappear quietly. 3 nights later, I woke to flashing lights. Fire trucks lined the street, smoke curled from the clubhouse roof, flames licking the night sky. I ran out, heart hammering. Emily stayed with a neighbor while I joined the crowd. The fire captain approached. "Arson, most likely." Started near the records room records, the same place that held years of HOA files, every violation, every signature, and parked just a few houses down was Marlene's SUV. The detective I'd spoken to before arrived soon after. "Ross," he said quietly, "we'll need to question everyone. But between the threats and the inspection fallout, we've got probable cause to bring her in." I watched as they knocked on her door. No answer. They forced entry. Minutes later, they escorted her out. Handcuffed, robe thrown over pajamas, eyes burning holes into me. "This is your doing," she spat as they led her past. "You ruined me." I didn't reply, because maybe in her mind she was right. The fire destroyed most of the HOA archives, but enough digital backups existed to confirm everything: insurance fraud, misuse of funds, years of covering fines by manipulating residents. She was charged with vandalism, intimidation, and obstruction. The DA's office contacted me as a witness. It felt surreal, like watching someone else's movie. Except every frame smelled like smoke and melted plastic, and I could still hear the crackle of burning paper. The trial took months. During that time, Emily got her new custom wheelchair. Sleek, light, bright teal rims that shimmered when she spun them. She called it Phoenix. When I asked why, she said, "Because it came from fire." She wasn't wrong. Life started to settle. Neighbors smiled again. The HOA, under new leadership, began building ramps and accessible walkways all over the community. They even named the new initiative Emily's Path. But inside me, something stayed restless. Justice felt good, but it didn't feel finished. One afternoon, weeks before the sentencing, I visited Marlene in county jail. I don't know why. Maybe curiosity, maybe closure. She looked older, smaller behind the glass. When she picked up the phone, her voice was brittle. "You came to gloat?" "No," I said, "to understand." She laughed once, bitter. "Understand what? That I tried to keep order? That people like you moved in and changed everything?" I studied her eyes. There was fear there, but also regret, buried under layers of pride. "You could have helped people," I said quietly. "You had power. You used it to hurt." She looked away. "Power's all I ever had," she murmured. "Take that away, and what's left?" The guard signaled time. Before hanging up, I said, "Maybe what's left is a chance to be better." She didn't answer. Outside the jail, I stood in the sunlight for a long moment, breathing. The air smelled of rain on hot asphalt. Clean, sharp, alive. For the first time in years, I felt light. Not because she was punished, but because Emily could roll down the ramp without fear. Because the community finally looked at her and saw a person, not a problem. Still, a question lingered. Had I won? Or had I just learned how to fight like her? Cold, relentless, precise? That night, Emily called me to her window. "Daddy, look," she said. Across the street, the city crew was pouring new concrete. Another ramp, this one for the community playground. She smiled. "It's like mine." I nodded, throat tight. "Yeah, sweetheart. It's just like yours." She spun her chair in a slow circle, teal rims flashing in the porch light. Then she said, "Do you think that lady will ever say sorry?" I paused. "I don't know," I said, "but maybe she'll think about it." Emily looked up at me, eyes bright. "Then we already won." Weeks later, I stood at the new playground ribbon-cutting ceremony. Reporters, neighbors, city officials all gathered. When they asked me to speak, I kept it simple. "I built one ramp to help my daughter," I said. "Now there are dozens." That's how change works. It starts small, then it spreads. Applause rolled through the crowd. In that moment, I saw Emily at the top of the slide, laughing with other kids, something I thought I'd never see again. And for the first time, the world felt level beneath her wheels. That night, as the lights dimmed and the neighborhood settled, I opened my laptop one last time. The HOA's new site banner read, "A community built on access, respect, and accountability." I smiled. Then my inbox pinged. One unread message. No subject line. When I opened it, there was just one sentence. Maybe I was wrong. M. I sat there for a long moment staring at the screen. Then I closed the laptop and whispered, Maybe we both were. 3 months later, the trial began. By then, the neighborhood looked different. New ramps, new faces, new quiet. But the courthouse still smelled of dust and old anger. When they called my name, I rose. My palms were slick, the folder in my hands trembling just slightly. On the other side of the room sat Marlene. Gray roots, hollow cheeks, no makeup. Her lawyer whispered to her, but she didn't look up.